Awaken your shadow. The truth sets some people free. It offends everyone else. By Seth, the Red Neo, Cherupak.
Chapter 5. Your divine right to security. You're only safe when you're safe to be your authentic self. Seth Cherpak. Safety is not the absence of threat, but the presence of connection. Gabor Mate. When safety is lost, the psyche splits. One half retreats, the other attacks. Neither feels secure. Both want control. Seth Cherpak. The practical person is grounded in earth, the spiritual person in heaven, the enlightened person in both. All of our suffering is born of our attempts to choose one over the other. We've forgotten that it's our divine right to feel at home in both. Seth Cherpak. Chapter 5. Your divine right to security. You're only safe when you're safe to be your authentic self. Seth Cherpak. Safety is not the absence of threat, but the presence of connection. Gabor Mate. When safety is lost, the psyche splits. One half retreats, the other attacks. Neither feels secure. Both want control. Seth Cherpak. The practical person is grounded in earth, the spiritual person in heaven, the enlightened person in both. All of our suffering is born of our attempts to choose one over the other. We've forgotten that it's our divine right to feel at home in both. Seth Cherpak. Part 1. Foundations of the Secure Self.
Your secure self is your guardian. It's the root layer of your psyche, tasked with keeping you alive, present, and grounded in your body. This grounding transcends the pop culture idea of safety pushed by self-help warriors on social media. It runs deeper than the craving for comfort, an abnormal impulse both manufactured and exploited by the takers who built the Matrix. Takers use the promise of safety, certainty, and comfort as an ideological ski mask to push products, policies, and propaganda that compel us to invest in things that enslave us, either through seduction or coercion. This manifests in the private sector in the form of guarantees on everything from 2-day shipping to lifetime happiness, safety from illness, identity theft, financial uncertainty, and physical pain or discomfort. Modest guarantees are fine. I teach my entrepreneur clients to use them ethically. But anyone who promises complete insulation from risk, rejection, or danger is out, not to give or even to barter, but to take. This is even more prevalent in the ungodly propaganda of world governments, who fool billions into selling out their liberty for the illusion of safety. Policies like the Patriot Act strip away freedom in the name of protection from terrorists. Ironically, decades after its passing, this policy was used against the very citizens who initially supported it. Climate regulations promise to control the elements of nature and protect us from its natural cycles. As long as we hand over more freedom and power to the governments who claim to have this godlike ability. Ironically, this is the same dogma pushed by ancient kings, emperors, and pharaohs who claimed a divine right to rule and secured it by promising to protect people from the forces of nature, the floods and droughts, the moon and tide, the winds and rains. People obeyed, even promoted and worshipped these narcissistic rulers because they believed their survival depended on it. Safety isn't about submission to the false narratives of the Matrix, especially the illusion that financial security can be bought through submission, hoarding, or external dependency. It's not about retreating from life or controlling it. True internal security comes from tuning in to the rhythms, internal and external, that make you feel safe and at home in your body and in the world. This isn't about strict routines or even discipline. It's about alignment, about building a steady internal rhythm that supports presence. The secure self shapes your beliefs about concepts like order, rhythm, boundaries, value, and the flow of resources and breath. It's the unshakable incubator within which your other selves can grow and thrive. Without it, healing doesn't hold, vision doesn't root, truth doesn't endure. Ideally, your secure self is developed through repetition and resonance, through the sound of your mother's heartbeat, the tone of your caregiver's voice, and the stability of arms that held you safe and close. Before you understood words, you understood this rhythm between arousal and rest. That rhythm told you, I am safe, I belong, I can release the anxious striving for survival and simply exist. This rhythmic sensory attunement is a principle understood by both scientific and sacred knowledge. It's called homeostasis. Scientifically, homeostasis is your body's ability to maintain internal balance amid external changes by adjusting things like body temperature, heart rate, and hormone levels to keep you steady. Your mind-body system moves like a sacred dance between two archetypal forces, the masculine, focused, driven, problem-solving, ready to fight or flee, and its counterpart, the restorative calm that says, you're safe, stay steady. Together they form the rhythm of your nervous system's balance. Ancient texts echo this principle of dynamic balance, and more importantly, how it is just as necessary for our thriving as it is for the thriving of the universe and nature. Book 8 of Tao Te Ching emphasizes balance through adaptability and flow, saying, the highest good is like water. Water gives life to the 10,000 things and does not strive. It flows in places men reject, and so is like the Tao. Sutrasthana 9.4 of the Karaka Samhita speaks to the central Ayurvedic principle of balance as the root of health, saying, he whose doshas are in balance is called a healthy person. Ecclesiastes 3:1 illustrates the sacred ebb and flow of life, a divine rhythm of change and constancy, saying, to everything there is a season and a time to every purpose under the heaven. These perspectives share a vital truth. Real strength lies not in resisting change, but in remaining centered as it flows around and through you. Homeostasis is your body's built-in regulation system, keeping your temperature, hormones, heart rate, and more within safe ranges without you needing to think about it. But while it functions without your conscious input, you can influence this biological rhythm through breath work, self-directed neuroplasticity, sound healing, and other modalities discussed in this book. When your system is in balance, it vibrates with ease, like an orchestra playing in tune, steady, powerful, and alive. It's what lets an adult walk into a tense conversation and stay grounded, connected, and present, rather than spiraling into panic or shutting down. Homeostasis is the internal thermostat that keeps your system balanced, like a perfectly tuned engine humming in quiet power. By contrast, when the body struggles to maintain homeostasis, that is, when its balancing systems are overloaded or disrupted, it feels like trying to drive with both feet on the pedals, one pressing the gas in anxiety, the other slamming the brake in fear. In childhood, this might look like a baby who never settles, whose body is always braced, scanning for the next absence or outburst. In adulthood, it becomes a nervous system wired for vigilance, where stillness feels unsafe and relaxation feels like a setup for disappointment. These early experiences create the emotional blueprint for attachment. Healthy homeostasis fosters secure attachment, the kind that forms a strong inner foundation. Disrupted or volatile rhythm leads to insecure attachment patterns, anxious, avoidant, or disorganized, While we'll explore this more deeply in the next section, it's important to recognize that your secure self is built not just through survival, but through attuned thriving, where your system learns that safety, support, and stillness can coexist. Spiritually, your secure self is grounded in fundamental truths about rhythm, rooted presence, and your sacred responsibility to circulate and steward the flow of money as energy, not as a possession, but as a relational expression of value. We'll explore these more deeply later in this chapter. For now, know that you don't have to give up freedom or opportunity to feel truly safe. True safety means living within a sanctuary, a structure that protects without confining. When you're grounded in that kind of safety, you don't feel caged. You feel supported, nourished, and ready to act with calm power. Awaken the secure self isn't about becoming more careful. It's about becoming present, letting your body tune to your natural rhythm and energetic signature. This is how you become the rhythmic and energetic pace setter in any room. You've been around people who have this ability. Their very presence is inspiring and contagious. This is a person grounded in their secure self, whether they're consciously aware of it or not. Every other self, the mystic, the healer, the visionary, rests on the foundation of the secure self. Without this foundation, there can be no stability and no growth. As I've said in my other work, the practical person is grounded in earth, the spiritual person in heaven, the enlightened person in both. The secure self is the meeting point between heaven and earth. It's cultivated not during mountaintop spiritual experiences, but in connecting with the solid ground beneath your everyday thoughts and actions. It's the embodied awareness that allows your highest knowing to take form in your lived reality. Without it, any spiritual insight runs the risk of luring you into spiritual tourism, where you know and feel the revelation, but you remain unchanged. The secure self makes your wisdom real and practical. Jesus taught this truth when he prayed, "On earth as it is in heaven." Real transformation is not an escape from the world, but the fulfillment of your divine nature through the world. The secure self is what makes that fulfillment possible. As Thich Nhat Hanh wrote, "The miracle is not to walk on water. The miracle is to walk on the green earth, dwelling deeply in the present moment and feeling truly alive." The pessimist looks down and loses their vision. The optimist looks up and loses their footing. The spiritually grounded person looks forward and adjusts their steps according to the laws that govern both heaven and earth. When Jesus prayed, "On earth as it is in heaven," he was calling us to a sacred integration, an alignment of divine pattern where spiritual truth takes root in physical form. This wasn't about fleeing the body or transcending reality, but infusing it with holy order. The secure self allows that integration to happen. It makes you a vessel, not for withdrawal, but for incarnation, for divine presence made tangible. Your secure self looks forward, rooted in reality, aligned with vision, and grounded in wisdom. This is the divine role of the first of the seven selves, to ground your presence in the world so you can build what you're here to build, become who you were born to be, and occupy your life fully, fiercely, without apology. New subheader, the secure self in relationships. The secure self creates steadiness in the space between you and another person, as well as in how energy is exchanged within that space. It empowers you to listen before reacting and to take a breath before defending. It keeps you rooted in your body when the winds and waves of your emotions are swirling in every direction. The secure self communicates clearly, holds boundaries without guilt, and welcomes intimacy without losing identity. It knows how to stay connected without collapsing, and how to stand firm without attacking. The secure self doesn't perform for approval nor try to control outcomes. It just shows up with presence and speaks and acts in the moment. There's a popular saying that no one can make you feel anything without your permission. This sounds good, but anyone who has loved another person knows it is simply not true. The secure person isn't the person with unwavering stoic control over their emotions. People who appear this way are often repressing the deepest shadows. The secure person transcends their emotions by responding from their values. They can do this because of their ability to remain present. When you're rooted in your secure self, love feels less like a tightrope and more like a dance floor. There's room for feedback, disagreement, repair, even rupture, because you're not depending on the other person to validate or to fix you. You don't need constant reassurance to feel stable. You don't interpret distance as danger or conflict as abandonment. You can be with someone without becoming codependent on them. You can be alone without feeling lost and bonded without feeling bound. When your secure self is active and developed, you can confidently say, I need some time to process this. That hurt. Can we talk about this later? I'm not okay with what you just said. A grounded person can say these without guilt, without apology, and without attacking. They can hear someone say them without taking it as a referendum on their value. Imagine your relationship as a room. Most people are walking on stilts, shaky, unstable, looking for the other person to hold them up. Now imagine your secure self as the floor of the room, the solid ground the relationship can stand on. Not because you're controlling everything in the relationship, but because you're grounded in your secure self. When the secure self is absent, the room starts collapsing every time someone raises their voice, pulls away, or says no. Panic takes over. You become a contortionist, twisting yourself out of form to keep the peace, or running to regain control. This is not love. It's fear born of the need for survival. But when the secure self is present, energy exchanges become safe again. Not because everything is perfect, but because you've stopped making every disagreement or conflict a personal threat. You can handle disappointment without falling apart. You can tolerate differences without needing to dominate or disappear. You become someone who can be trusted with intimacy, not because you're immune to being triggered, but because you can keep your own emotional account stable without making withdrawals from the relationship. New subheader: the secure self and the contract of currency. Security is about more than personal safety. It's about honoring the commitment your soul made to inhabit and engage with the material world and the conscious beings you share it with. In Chapter 4, we introduced the 7 contracts of incarnation, sacred agreements through which your spirit consents to be shaped by matter, meaning it agrees to take on form, limitation, and the physical realities that mold our earthly experience. The first of these is the contract of currency, which says, I will exchange energy. This contract isn't about dollars, euros, yen, or any form of currency. These are human-made units of measurement, much like inches or liters. What this contract truly represents is the exchange of energy, with money as the conduit for circulating labor, creativity, care, and knowledge. Your internal beliefs, past traumas, and coping mechanisms profoundly shape your relationship with this flow. Subconscious money beliefs often overpower disciplined effort. You may hesitate to ask for your worth, overspend to numb discomfort, or hoard money out of fear that security lies in accumulation. These beliefs influence how you receive, give, save, and circulate the energy that money represents. If you believe money is inherently corrupt, you'll feel guilty about asking for it or even spending it on yourself. If you were raised in scarcity, you will treat money as a lifeline rather than a tool for creation. In both cases, your relationship with money becomes entangled with fear, guilt, or shame. This energetic flow reflects your sense of worth and the integrity of your decisions. When aligned, money flows more effortlessly. You attract the right clients, job offers, or opportunities without forcing them. When out of alignment, your best strategies fall flat, and financial stress compounds your disconnection from self. You might work harder thinking more effort equals more security, but end up depleted and no better off. Conversely, when you release limiting beliefs and honor the energy that money represents, you begin to experience flow. Opportunities arrive more easily, and your financial life starts to reflect inner clarity. When disconnected from your secure self, your emotional state becomes tied to your bank balance. A full account brings peace. A low one brings panic. You may rigidly track every dollar in hopes of controlling your anxiety. But hyper-control doesn't bring peace. It only amplifies fear. You sacrifice joy and spontaneity in exchange for momentary control. This is a distorted locus of control, a psychological term for where you believe power resides in your life. When it comes to money, this distortion shows up in two common ways. First, you might feel powerless, believing that your financial well-being depends entirely on external factors like income, inflation, or other people's decisions. Or you might swing to the opposite extreme, trying to micro-control every dollar, budget, and purchase in an anxious attempt to feel safe. In both cases, your secure self, the part of you rooted in clarity and calm, gets pushed aside. Financial sovereignty begins when you reclaim a healthy locus of control, recognizing that while you can't control every outcome, you can choose to respond with alignment, intention, and grounded stewardship. To be sovereign with energy is to circulate it with purpose. Sovereignty means investing, spending, and managing money as an extension of your core values. Whether you prioritize healing, creativity, or service, your money choices become a mirror of your integrity. Examples of sovereign money decisions include spending on personal well-being, like therapy or rest, or investing in causes and skills that support your long-term vision. It might mean donating generously or launching a mission-driven business even when it's uncomfortable. Sovereignty doesn't avoid discomfort. It invites intentional risk rooted in purpose. Money flows in your life according to your values. It reflects the desires of your heart and the strength of your character. When you treat money as energy in motion, you become the steward of that energy, directing it consciously rather than chasing it desperately. But many people remain stuck in cycles of money trauma. Their nervous system is shaped by survival patterns, overworking, under-earning, overspending, or avoiding financial management altogether. These aren't signs of failure. They're coping strategies from a nervous system trained by instability. Chronic stress keeps the body in fight-or-flight mode, disrupting your capacity to make clear, aligned choices. This is where the myth of money equals freedom becomes most damaging. If your nervous system equates freedom with escape from financial pain, you'll chase money not from sovereignty, but from desperation. You may hoard, control, or avoid managing it at all, never finding peace, only pressure. You know this pattern when your secure self fades into the background. You second-guess your financial decisions, get overwhelmed or discouraged by small expenses, or lash out in stress. You're no longer guided by clarity or calm, but by urgency and fear. This pursuit of financial safety becomes a race you can't win. To reclaim financial sovereignty, you must pause. Honor the contract of currency by taking a deep, honest look at your financial landscape, not just numbers, but your beliefs, habits, and emotional triggers. Ask yourself, do I believe money is inherently evil, forgetting that it is greed, not money, that is the source of harm? Does my financial environment reflect a healthy view of money as a tool for exchange, or am I holding on to limiting narratives? Am I spending, saving, and investing in alignment with my deepest values, or reacting from fear and scarcity? Do I feel peace in my financial practices, or do they reflect a scramble for control driven by insecurity? When you reflect deeply on these questions, you begin to untangle money from survival and reconnect it to sovereignty. Maybe your bank statements feel chaotic. Simplifying and setting spending boundaries can restore clarity. Maybe your financial life feels sterile. Spending with joy and purpose may bring vitality back. Or maybe it's time to stop outsourcing your power and begin stewarding your wealth with intention. These aren't just behavioral tweaks, they're nervous system shifts. When your finances align with your values, your body relaxes, your breath deepens, your clarity returns. Your internal and external environments sync, creating a feedback loop of peace and power. From here, you move beyond financial strategies. Honoring the contract of currency means reshaping your internal landscape, aligning beliefs, energy, and behavior with your purpose. The more you do this, the more you'll see spending money as a fluid, conscious exchange that mirrors the abundance within you. When financial fear creeps in, notice your inner dialogue. I have to work harder to make more, or if I don't control everything, I'll lose it all. These are scripts driven by fear, shame, guilt, and scarcity. In contrast, a sovereign voice might say, "Money flows to me in alignment with my purpose. I use it to expand freedom and amplify my values." This is where your identity script comes in, a personal statement that reprograms your financial narrative. It's more than affirmation, it's an energetic declaration of truth. Here's an example. I once believed that receiving money meant someone else had to go without. Now I understand that money is energy in motion, and when it flows to me, it empowers me to lift others higher. I welcome wealth with open hands and a clear conscience. I use money to reclaim my time, multiply my peace, and invest in the life I'm here to build. Later in this chapter, you'll craft your own identity script. It will be rooted in your unique history, shaped by your beliefs, and directed towards your future. Not just words, but a lived embodiment of your financial truth. Most financial systems offer tools, but they ignore the roots. Budgeting, saving, and investing are helpful, but without transforming your beliefs, they rest on unstable ground. True change begins within. Belief fuels behavior. Alignment fuels peace. Financial sovereignty isn't about how much you have, it's about how aligned you are. It's the external expression of inner peace, integrity, the clarity of knowing your values, and the power of circulating money with purpose. It's about becoming the conscious creator of your financial destiny, shaped not by fear, but by freedom. When you shift your internal narrative, your financial life begins to reflect this. Money becomes an extension of who you are, not something to chase, fear, or control. Your relationship with money becomes a practice of embodiment, alignment, and creative flow. New subheader: the secure self and the principle of rhythm. Finding personal security, social, financial, emotional, etc., isn't about finding a safe place to sit and stay. It's about creating a life that aligns and moves in response to the divine principle of rhythm. This principle states that all creation, from the subatomic to the cosmic world, moves in predictable patterns. These patterns shape the fabric of the external universe. When we align ourselves with the principle of rhythm, we gain the power to shape our external lives according to our internal desires. This is the divine role of the secure self, and it starts with mastering our own internal rhythms first, instead of being pushed and pulled around by the rhythms of the external world. Homeostasis is your internal rhythm, your body's innate intelligence keeping you balanced amidst change. It maintains your temperature, regulates your heartbeat, modulates hormones, and even governs emotional states. Likewise, the principle of rhythm serves as the divine homeostasis of the universe. Just as your body cycles between arousal and rest, the world pulses through tides, seasons, lunar phases, and solar rotations. The principle of rhythm is not a poetic metaphor. It's the blueprint of biology and cosmos alike. Everything from the beating of your heart to the turning of the earth operates on rhythm. Circadian rhythms dictate your energy, focus, and mood throughout the day. Lunar rhythms affect ocean tides, and for many, emotional tides as well. Seasonal rhythms regulate the migration of animals, the blossoming of plants, and the harvest that sustain life, just as financial rhythms guide patterns of earning, saving, investing, and spending. When you align with these economic cycles instead of resisting them, you can navigate periods of contraction and expansion with greater clarity and stability. Even economic cycles mirror these principles, rising and falling in rhythmic waves of expansion and contraction. These are not random fluctuations, they are signatures of a universe in motion. Economist Sendil Mullainathan, along with psychologist Eldar Shafir, documented how scarcity, whether of time, money, or resources, literally shrinks mental bandwidth. In their book, Scarcity, Why Having Too Little Means So Much, they explain that individuals under chronic stress from poverty or financial pressure experience diminished cognitive function, poorer decision-making, and reduced impulse control. The mind becomes so focused on immediate survival that it loses access to higher-order thinking. This isn't just emotional, it's neurological. Scarcity hijacks the rhythm of thought. When you're grounded in your secure self, you don't resist these rhythms, you move with them. You recognize the financial season you're in, whether it's a time of earning, saving, investing, or reducing expenses, and respond with attuned, intentional action that aligns with your values and broader goals. In the season of sowing, the secure self expands effort, makes sacrifices, and chooses delayed gratification. It sees contraction not as lack, but as preparation. It invests in barren soil. It plants seeds where others see only bare ground. And because of this, it reaps a harvest others never see. But I didn't always understand this. In the early 2000s, I was working as a private music teacher, making about $12,000 a year. Every penny felt like a lifeline. One of my students had a parent who was a successful entrepreneur. He saw potential in me and encouraged me to start an online business teaching guitar. But I didn't. I clung to the little I had. I saw the contraction around me, the limited income, the unstable schedule, and I responded by shrinking. I didn't invest in a website. I didn't build the systems. I didn't sow. I waited for safety before I moved, not realizing that movement was the path to safety. Had I started then, that business could have grown into a multi-million-dollar platform by 2020. But I missed the rhythm. I contracted when I should have expanded. Contrast that with 2008, a story I shared in Chapter 1. At that time, I was earning over $100,000 a year at a comfortable job. The economy was beginning to unravel into what would become the Great Recession. I had every reason to play it safe, to cling to my security. I also had every opportunity to indulge in expansion, buying a house, upgrading my lifestyle, investing in the illusion of security. But I did neither. Instead, I unknowingly aligned myself with the divine will. After years of internal work, mastering my own rhythms, cultivating homeostasis, and building the foundation of my secure self, I was finally attuned. I contracted in a time of abundance. I quit my job. I funneled all of my surplus energy, savings, and attention into one focused effort, launching my freelance writing business. That decision became the cornerstone of my life's work. It wasn't until 2022, during a private martial arts lesson, that my Krav Maga instructor, Jesus Revezzo, said something that brought the full weight of my decision into clarity. When your enemy contracts, you expand. When he expands, you contract. In that moment, I realized the depth of the principle of rhythm. This is not just strategy for combat, it is wisdom for life. We do not master our external world by mirroring its movements. We master it by first mastering our own rhythms, by creating an internal economy of attention, energy, and trust. Then we translate that into our personal economy, expanding when the world contracts and contracting when the world expands. We master it by first mastering our own rhythms, by creating an internal economy of attention, energy, and trust. Then we translate that into our personal economy, expanding when the world contracts and contracting when the world expands. That is how you use rhythm as propulsion. Just as a swimmer uses the rhythm of waves to glide forward, or a surfer uses the pull of the tide to catch the perfect wave, your secure self rides the currents of reality, not reactively but rhythmically, and that rhythm, properly understood and embodied, is the very structure of spiritual power. Those not grounded in their secure self interpret these seasons through fear. They see contraction as scarcity and respond with withdrawal, hoarding, or paralysis. They miss the chance to sow because they cannot distinguish between contraction as a natural phase and contraction as a threat. Consequently, they have little to reap when the harvest comes. Consider the investor who builds wealth by buying when markets are low. This is rhythm applied to finance, sowing in perceived scarcity, guided not by emotion, but by historical rhythm. Now consider the opposite, the overconfident spender during a boom, expanding their lifestyle, overextending their reach. They mistake a temporary season for a permanent upgrade. When the downturn arrives, they are exposed, unprepared, and destabilized. The secure self contracts during abundance, not out of fear, but out of wisdom. It stores resources, secures systems, and sharpens tools. It reinvests in what works rather than scattering energy across new ventures born of hype. It consolidates power and prepares for the inevitable contraction. This makes the next sowing season less desperate. The rhythm of life becomes a gentle incline because the rhythm within is stable. This principle is as old as civilization. The story of Joseph in the book of Genesis includes a prophetic dream of 7 years of abundance followed by 7 years of famine. Joseph's advice? Store grain during the good years. Build reserves when the world is full. That is the secure self at work, contracting during abundance so survival and strength are possible in famine. By contrast, those disconnected from the secure self expand when life expands. They upgrade lifestyles, chase shiny objects, and invest in distractions, not from confidence but from a hidden instability masked by temporary abundance. They confuse rhythm with reward, and when the next contraction comes, they collapse, not because life got harder, but because they mismanage their internal rhythm. Most external hardships in life stem from this misalignment. People react to the seasons instead of dancing with them, and this reactive posture begins with a disrupted relationship to their own rhythm. Their internal drumbeat is erratic, distorted, or silent altogether. Without the secure self, they have no internal compass, no way to pace their effort, rest, risk, or reward. Mastering your rhythm means becoming a sovereign steward of time, energy, and effort. You sow when others shrink, you conserve when others splurge, you rest without guilt and act without panic. Your life stops being a roller coaster and becomes a symphony, one where you're both the composer and the instrument. This is the gift of rhythm, and the secure self is its guardian. With it, your seasons don't define you. You define your seasons. You move through life with grace, presence, and calm authority, not because life is easy, but because you have mastered the rhythm within. And this rhythm, like all the others we've explored in this book, is not separate from the greater structure that governs all of reality. It is a living echo of it. This brings us back to a deeper truth introduced earlier. Free will is not your greatest power. Alignment is. Free will is not your spiritual trophy, it is your tuning fork. And without tuning it to the eternal structure of natural law, it becomes not your liberation, but your downfall. Every rhythm we experience, bodily, emotional, economic, ecological, is the song of these laws in motion. To master your rhythm is to bring your will into harmony with the order of reality itself. This is why people who try to manifest abundance, happiness, or peace without first aligning their will to the deeper truths of existence often fail. They're playing random notes and calling it music. But rhythm is not a feeling, it is not a preference, it is a law. It requires discernment, timing, and calibration. The secure self listens for this divine tempo, not just within the body, but in the world. It knows how to time a leap, hold a line, conserve power, or release control. And it does this, not through fear or ambition, but through alignment. This is what makes the secure self powerful. It is not reactive, it is attuned. Rhythm is your refuge, your compass, and your strategy for living as a cause instead of an effect. It is the pulse of divine law. It is the sacred pattern by which fear stabilizes into clarity and courage. As you master this law, you align your will with the divine will and move from reactive impulse into grounded intention.
End of Part 1 of Chapter 5 of Awaken Your Shadow by Seth Cherapak.